Sri K. Satyan, Director, Kerala Judicial Academy, Sri Jyotiraj, President, Bar Association, judicial officers, members of the bar, students, friends. Today we have a special guest to impart knowledge on the execution of decrees and orders. Sri K. Satyan is an exceptional resource now available to us, as probably he is the first person to have a practical knowledge extending over a period, extending decades as a trial court judge, both in the civil and criminal side. And that is an exceptional occasion for us to get practical knowledge in the execution of decrees and orders. We know decrees are the formal expression of an adjudication which determines the rights of the parties. Finally, as far as the court declaring it is concerned, it is final because it is only subject to appeal and can be altered only in appeal or other proceedings by a superior forum. Otherwise, it is final. So we know there are preliminary decrees, final decrees, and a decree that may be partly preliminary and partly final. Apart from that, we classify decrees as money decrees, then prohibitory decrees, mandatory decrees, declaratory decrees, and the execution varies in these different types of decrees depending on the requirements of the relief granted. Execution arises only when the party fails to comply with the decree or order of the court. That we must always remember that a party should be given an opportunity to obey the decree, for which there should be a clear direction to the parties. So when a decree is made, say a money decree, where there should be a clear direction to the defendant to pay a certain specific amount to the plaintiff. So unless there is a specific direction to do that, we cannot complain that he has not obeyed the decree. Mere statement that he is entitled to realize or he is allowed to realize, such words are rarely found in decrees. These are not a correct way of expressing decrees. Where we fails to know that the judgment debtor can respectfully obey the decree. When we say that the plaintiff is allowed to realize the amount, it suggests that the defendant is a person who will not obey the amount. Such a type of decree should be avoided. We should give him a respectful opportunity by saying that you pay this amount. The nature of decrees. And it is possible to execute a decree immediately after pronouncing the judgment if there are justifiable reason to think that otherwise it may prejudice the plaintiff. And nothing is there barring the court from proceeding with the execution immediately on pronouncing the judgment. Such are exceptional circumstances, and normally the execution is initiated only after filing an execution proceeding. So there are various methods of execution depending upon the nature of relief granted. And our Honorable Speaker will explain all those modes of execution. And I wish you all a wonderful time to have the opportunity to know as to the experience on these matters. I welcome Sri Satyan, District Judge, Director, Kerala Judicial Academy. Welcome, sir.
Thanks, Madhu. Can I start?
Yes.
Good evening, one and all. And thanks, Madhu Kumar, for inviting me for this important session on continuing legal education. I can see very experienced judicial officers and lawyers online. See, execution of decrees and orders, it's a vast subject. It's not possible to discuss each and every aspect of execution of decrees and orders in one session, say one hour, 1 hour, 15 minutes. But my attempt is to discuss the general principles, to give an overview of what is execution of decrees. So I will be touching a few topics. Sometimes I will be referring to some precedents. Then at the end, we can have a discussion if any doubts are there. And first of all, I congratulate District Legal Services Authority, Pathanamthitta, for bringing up a wonderful program for continuing legal education. It is absolutely necessary. And the webinars have really helped the members of the legal fraternity during these difficult times, COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of webinars. In fact, one can get number of webinars on any topic if we search the web. So let me move to the topic straight away. See, execution of decrees. It is said that the trouble starts once the decree is passed. Once the decree is passed, the decree holder has to execute it. Then every trouble starts. The judgment debtor, the third parties, intervention of third parties, several others will try to protract the execution proceedings. So I will start with this passage. Certain amendments to the CPC also have helped to expedite the process of execution. So this is a passage from NSS Narayana Sharma versus Messrs. Goldsmith Exports Private Limited, 2002, Supreme Court 251. It is said that in India, the difficulty of a litigant starts when he executes the decree to get the fruits of decree. An age-old concept fortified by the actual happenings, that it is much more easier to get a decree than to get it executed. And the miseries start after obtaining a decree from the court is now being eradicated slowly after the 1976 amendment, which brought a new era for civil suits. In fact, in the last amendment, 1999 and 2002 amendment, which came into force on 1/7/2002, certain amendments, certain important provisions were added. For example, Section 39(4). These amendments were challenged before the Honorable Supreme Court. A committee was constituted, a report was filed, those reports were taken into account. Finally, we follow the amended provisions. See, as far as CPC is concerned, it is a self-contained mechanism for the execution of decrees and orders. There are numerous provisions, right from Section 36 to 74, then Order 21, 106 rules are there. So these provisions will take care of different situations, providing for effective remedial measures. And these provisions help not only the decree holders, the judgment debtors, even third parties, claimants, objectors, garnishees. See, what is meant by execution? Is it defined in the CPC? No, it is not defined anywhere in the CPC. But there are judicial pronouncements by which the term execution is defined. We can call it as we can say that execution is the enforcement of decrees and orders by the process of the court, so as to enable the decree holder to enjoy the fruits of the decree, and it means and includes the process also. This is a passage from 1984 Supreme Court 1383, AR 1984 Supreme Court 1383, and also 2004 8 SCC 724. Citations are not mentioned in the slide. Then decree is defined. Section 2.2, Mr. Madhukumar mentioned about the definition of the decree in his introductory speech. An order is defined in section 2, subsection 4. Decree includes the definition of decree includes it could be either preliminary or final and shall be deemed to include the rejection of a plaint and the determination of any question under section 144, that is restitution, but shall not include any adjudication from which an appeal lies as an appeal from an order or any order of dismissal for default. So this is the definition of the decree, section 2.2. See, before continuing further, I will be discussing basic things in this session. So that is why the topic is coined in such a way, general principles. Mostly basic things all of us know very well. Still, only to refresh your memory, and if required, if necessary, we can have separate sessions on separate topics. Then section 2, subsection 14 defines order. Order means the formal expression of any decision of a civil court which is not a decree. Formal expression of any civil court which is not a decree. Then various types of decrees are there. Decree for payment of money, decree for recovery of possession of immobile property, decree for redemption of mortgage, for foreclosure, partition, injunction, etc., fixation of boundary. Several decrees are there. These are the executable, some examples of executable orders. Orders in the final decree in a partition suit, directing issue of warrant to the receiver for taking possession of the property and to divide the property by metes and bounds as per the preliminary decree, and alternatively to sell the property and divide the proceeds thereof. It depends on the nature of property and the circumstances. Then order for interim maintenance, order of eviction passed by the rent control court. These are all executable orders. See, as I mentioned at the beginning, the trouble starts once a decree is passed and it is put in execution. The attempt of the judgment debtor or even third parties claiming under the judge or persons claiming under the judgment debtor will be to protract the proceedings, prolong the execution. They will resist execution of the decree. They will try to avoid litigation. The property will be trespassed upon. There will be resistance from third parties during delivery of property. Claim petitions will be there. Courts. So under these circumstances, courts will have to be vigilant. Procedure and formalities will have to be complied with. See, a property can be sold in execution of a decree for payment of money by attachment and sale or by sale alone without attachment. If the procedure is not followed and if there is any latches on the part of the court, the matter will be taken up before the appellate forum, before the High Court, then if necessary before the Supreme Court. So it is important to ensure that the proper procedure is followed by the court. It is for that matter, it is important that everyone, all stakeholders, the litigants, the lawyers, the judges, everyone should know what exactly is the procedure to be followed when a decree is executed. Then when a property is put in auction for recovery of money, there is a tendency to sell, to request the court to sell huge extent of property instead of identifying the extent of property that is necessary, that is sufficient to satisfy the decree. The decree holder will apply to the court to sell a huge extent of property. Suppose the court does not conduct a proper inquiry to identify the extent of property that is sufficient to satisfy the decree, There is every possibility that the litigation is protracted. The judgment debtor will take up the matter further. He will approach the the appellate courts. Then the matter will be prolonged, and ultimately the entire thing will be set aside. The court executing the decree will have to start afresh. So the decree holder should be very careful when applying for execution of the decree, especially by sale of the property. Only that part of the property or that much extent of the property that is sufficient to satisfy the decree alone can be sold. This is the mandate under Order 21 Rule 64 CPC. Now let us move to Section 51, various modes of execution of decree. Delivery of property. The relevant provision is Order 21, Rule 35. Delivery to obtain possession of the property. If it is by the auction purchaser, Order 21, Rule 95. Then by attachment and sale or sale without attachment of property. Sections 60, 65 to 67. Order 21 Rules 41 to 54, 58, then 64 to 106. These are the relevant provisions. By arrest and detention in civil prison, sections 55 to 59. Then Order 21 Rules 11A to Rule 22, then 37 to 40. Then by appointment of receiver, Order 40. Then there is another provision in Section 51 in subclause E, in such other manner as the nature of the relief granted may require. So these are the provisions that deals with various modes of execution of decree. Then there are several topics, proceedings, garnishee proceedings, attachment and sale of movables, attachment and sale of immobile property, procedure for setting aside sale, precautions to be taken before sale, etc., etc. Then what is the period of limitation prescribed for execution of a decree? We have to refer to Articles 135 and 136 of the Limitation Act. Article 136 deals with execution of any decree other than a decree granting a mandatory injunction or order of any civil court. The period of limitation for an application for the execution of any decree other than a decree for granting a mandatory injunction or order of any civil court is 12 years, and the time of limitation starts to run from the date when the decree or order becomes enforceable, or where the decree or any subsequent order directs any payment of money or the delivery of any property to be made at a certain date or at recurring periods when default in making the payment or delivery in respect of its execution is sought take place. The proviso says that an application for the enforcement of execution of a decree granting a perpetual injunction shall not be subject to any period of limitation. The proviso is important. Then Article 135, the period of limitation for execution of a decree for mandatory injunction, 3 years from the date of the decree or where a date is fixed for performance, such date. See, we are all generally concerned with execution of decree by one of the modes. Suppose if it is a decree for payment of money by arrest of the person concerned, or by sale of the property. See, under certain circumstances, simultaneous execution against the property and person of the judgment debtor is possible. Order 21 Rule 21. It's a provision for simultaneous execution. It says that court may, in its discretion, refuse execution at the same time against the person and property of the judgment debtor. Simultaneous execution is permitted, but court can refuse. Court has the discretion to refuse simultaneous execution against the person and property of the judgment debtor. The court has a discretion, that is important. And then a few citations I can give you. on the point Leela Kumari versus Shikha. Leela Kumari versus Shikha, 2018, Volume 3, KLT 556. 2018, Volume 3, KLT 556. Then AR 1957, Madras 777. 1957, Madras 777. Then State Bank of India versus Index Port Registered, AR 1992, Supreme Court 1740. 92 Supreme Court 1740. See, suppose an execution petition is filed for arrest and detention of the judgment debtor in civil prison on the last day of the period of limitation. Thereafter, the decree holder, so after filing the EP, the decree becomes the further execution petition is not possible as the period of limitation is over. Thereafter, the decree holder files an application to amend the execution petition to add, for the purpose of simultaneous execution, to add to proceed against the property of the judgment debtor. That is, an application to proceed against the property of the judgment debtor is filed after the period of limitation. Is it permitted? The decisions say that permitting, the decisions say that amendment of EP, a new mode should be made. So it is not possible to, it is not possible for the decree holder to add or to or execution of the decree against property of the judgment debtor after the period of limitation. The principle is permitting incorporation of a different mode of execution after the expiry of the period of limitation would amount to entertaining a fresh application for execution. Fresh application for execution is not possible because the decree, the period of limitation is over. This principle was considered in Pendapatti Chinna Venkanna, Pendapatti Bengaraju, 1964 Supreme Court 1454, AR 1964 Supreme Court 1454. Then Lalji Raja and Sons, Lalji Raja and Sons versus firm Hansraj Nathuram, 1971 Supreme Court 974. 1971 Supreme Court 974. Then Mohanachandran RS Elias Kannan versus Bhavani Amma Pankajakshi Amma, 2010 Volume 4 KLT 127. 2010 Volume 4 KLT 127. Then Porinju versus John. Porinju versus this is a contra view. Porinju versus John, 1995 2 KLT 339. See, Porinju was not followed. Porinju was considered in Mohanachandran in this 2010 4 KLT 127. It was held by it was observed by the court that Porinju cannot be followed because Porinju was rendered without noticing Lalji Raja. Lalji Raja, 1971 Supreme Court. Porinju, the decision in Porinju was given without referring to the binding precedent of the Supreme Court in Lalji Raja. So that is, Porinju is not good law. 1995 2 KLT 339. Then next provision is section 36. We'll start from section 36. The provisions of this code relating to the execution of decrees, including provisions relating to payment under a decree, shall, so far as they are applicable, be deemed to apply to the execution of orders. Provisions of the code for execution of decrees are applicable to execution of orders also. Now, let us see what is section 38. Execution of decrees and orders, general. A decree may be executed either by the court. Which court can execute the decree? A decree can be, it's a basic thing. A decree can be executed by the court which passed the decree or the court to which it is sent for execution. The court which passed the decree or the court to which it is sent for execution. See, the executing court cannot be guided by equitable considerations. It has to strictly follow the terms of the decree. In other words, the decree has to be executed as it stands. The executing court cannot make additions to the decree while executing it. The decree has to be executed as it stands. See, when suppose a decree is passed without jurisdiction, jurisdiction, territorial jurisdiction, pecuniary jurisdiction, then jurisdiction over the subject matter. Suppose we are not concerned about pecuniary or territorial jurisdiction. Suppose a decree is passed without jurisdiction, that the decree suffers from inherent lack of jurisdiction. It is a nullity. Such a decree can be challenged even in execution. A decree which is nullity, decree passed without jurisdiction, can be challenged. Validity of the decree can be challenged even at the stage of execution. So the basic principle is that a decree has to be executed as it stands. But when the decree is passed without jurisdiction and it is a nullity, such a decree can be challenged even in execution. An earlier decision is there, Kiran versus Chaman, 1954 Supreme Court, AR 1954 Supreme Court 340. There are umpteen decisions, lot of decisions there. This is enough. This decision is enough to understand the principles. Now, we have discussed that a decree has to be executed as it stands. Under any circumstances, can the executing court go behind the decree? The basic principle is that the executing court cannot go behind the decree under execution. It shall execute the decree as it stands. The executing court shall not entertain an argument that the decree sought to be executed was incorrect in law or on facts. That is, the correctness of the decree cannot be challenged in execution. Validity of the decree on the ground that it is nullity can be challenged, but correctness of the decree was the finding of the court was not correct. It's not a point that can be considered at the stage of execution. That means a decree, even assuming that is incorrect in law or on facts, is executable until it is set aside by a proper proceeding in appeal, revision, or other proceedings provided for under the CPC. So until the decree is set aside, even if it is against law or facts, that it is binding, it is executable. So until it is set aside in appropriate proceedings or reverse, and appropriate proceedings in appeal, revision, or other proceedings provided in the code, it is executable. See, though this is the general principle, it is the duty of the court. The court has the power to find out the true effect of a decree. The true effect of a decree. What are the circumstances? Court has a duty to find out the true effect of the decree. For construing a decree, it can, and in appropriate cases, it ought to take into consideration the pleadings as well as the proceedings leading up to the decree. Under exceptional circumstances, if the terms and conditions of the decree has to be construed or interpreted, of course, the executing court can look into the pleadings leading up to the decree. Then another situation, in order to find out the meaning of the words employed in a decree, the court often has to ascertain the circumstances under which those words came to be used. That is the plain duty of the execution court. See, these situations arise when the terms of the decree are not clear. Suppose a decree is passed, suit is decreed as prayed for. The terms of the decree is not there in the judgment, in the operative portion of the judgment. The clerk drafting the decree will incorporate the same thing. It's decreed as prayed for. What is the decree? It is not clear from the decree itself. So can the court refuse to execute the decree on the ground that the terms and conditions of the decree are not stipulated or stated in the decree? No, because it is a valid decree. It has to be executed. So for the limited purpose of ascertaining what exactly is the relief granted, the executing court can look into the pleadings leading up to the passing of the decree. Then if the decree is erroneous in law or on facts, executing court cannot go behind the decree. If a decision is required, you may note this one: V.D. Modi versus R.A. Rahman, 70 Supreme Court, 1475. The next, I have mentioned that validity of a decree can be challenged before the executing court under certain circumstances. That the decree was passed without jurisdiction, then therefore it is a nullity. Under what circumstances? Is it challenge on validity of the decree? It is possible. Under what circumstances? These are some of the grounds available. That the court which passed the decree was lacking in inherent jurisdiction, in the sense that it could not have season of the case because subject matter was wholly foreign to its jurisdiction, or that the defendant was dead. Suppose the decree is passed against a dead person when the suit was instituted or decree was passed, or such other ground which could have the effect of rendering the court entirely lacking in jurisdiction in respect to the subject matter of the suit over the parties to it. Hiralal versus Kalinath, it's very old decision, 62 Supreme Court, 199. So, in short, the executing court can neither travel behind the decree nor sit in appeal over the same or pass any order affect parties thereunder. It is only in the limited cases where the decree is by a court lacking inherent jurisdiction or is a nullity that the same is rendered inexecutable. The executing court can refuse to execute the decree. An erroneous decree cannot be equated with one which is a nullity. An erroneous decree is executable until it is set aside in appeal, revision, or such other proceedings. You may note this decision also, AR 2017 Supreme Court, 1577. AR 2017 Supreme Court 1577. Breakwell Automotive Components. Breakwell Automotive Components India Private Limited versus Messrs. P.R. Shelvam Alagappan. AR 2017 Supreme Court 1577. Now the next question is, can the executing court add or alter the decree in the light of the events subsequent to the passing of the decree? So we have found that the decree has to be executed as it stands, except under a limited circumstance. The executing court cannot go behind the decree. So the principle is that execution court cannot go behind the decree. Likewise, it cannot add or alter the decree in the light of the events subsequent to the passing of the decree. Whatever be the events that has happened subsequent to the passing of the decree, it cannot add to the decree. It cannot modify the decree. The executing court can't modify the decree. Of course, this is subject to the three exceptions where the decree is a nullity, it is bad for want of territorial jurisdiction, inherent lack of jurisdiction, or such other matter, or a decree is passed against a dead person. If you can take note of this decision, 1956 Supreme Court 359, Jainarayan Ram Lundia versus Kedarnath Ketan, AR 1956 Supreme Court 359. Then Seth Hiralal Patni. Seth Hiralal Patni versus Sri Kalinath. AR 1962 Supreme Court 199. AR 1962 Supreme Court 199. Then Sheikh Alimuddin Ahmad versus State of West Bengal. AR 1971 Supreme Court 1371. 71 Supreme Court 1371. Can the executing court interpret the decree? It can interpret the decree to construe the terms of the decree, but it cannot make a new decree. It cannot add to the decree already passed. Ramaswamy versus Kailasa. Then now let us discuss merger of decree of the lower court and the appellate court. Merger of decree. The principle is that decree of the lower court merges in the decree of the Court of Appeal, irrespective of confirmation, modification, or reversal. Once there is an appeal, and the appellate court, the decree of the trial court will merges into the decree of the appellate court. See, suppose an appeal is dismissed for default. Suppose appeal is dismissed for default. Would there be a merger? Dismissal of an appeal for default or on any technical ground amounts to confirmation of the decree appealed against. Hence, it gets merged in the appellate decree or order. So, when an appeal is dismissed for default, the effect is that the decree appealed against is confirmed. So, there is merger. The decree of the trial court merges with that of the appellate court. Shiodan Singh versus Daryao Kunwar, AR 1966 Supreme Court 1332. Then another situation can happen. Appeal abates. What is the position? When an appeal abates, can it be said that there is merger? Merger of decree when appeal abates. There is no merger if the appeal abates. Ambabai versus Gopal, AR 2001 Supreme Court 2003. Ambabai versus Gopal, AR 2001 Supreme Court 2003. There is no decree. When the appeal abates, there is no decree at all. Therefore, there is no merger at all. Abatement takes by its own force, on its own force by passage of time. No specific order is envisaged. By passage of time, the appeal gets abated. The suit gets abated. It is not necessary for the court to pass an order that the suit or the appeal abates to close the suit as abated. By passage of time, the proceedings gets abated, unless, of course, steps are taken as provided under Order 22 CPC. Madan Naik versus Bala Devi, 83 Supreme Court 676. Then the last citation of the last one is Mithailal Dalsankar Singh versus Annabai Devram Kini. It is AR 2003 Supreme Court 4244. 2003 Supreme Court 4244. So the principle is, when the appeal is dismissed for default, there is a decree. There is confirmation of the decree appealed against. When the appeal is dismissed as abated, when the appeal abates, there is no decree at all, so there is no merger. So this is the distinction. Suppose the plaintiff will be claiming several reliefs. Suppose some reliefs are disallowed. The suit is only partly decreed. Can the executing court grant the relief which were denied? No. It is not possible. Then execution against a dead person is null and void. Then in a particular case, the JDs objected execution of the decree on the ground that it is a nullity on the ground alleged was summons was not properly served on them. The executing court is not expected to look into those contentions. It is not, such a contention is not available to the judgment debtor at the execution stage. Angamali Chitti Funds Private Limited versus Satish Chandran. Now let us see section 37. Section 37 deals with definition of the court which passed the decree under different situation, which is the court that passed the decree. Certain situations are mentioned. Court by which definition of court which passed a decree. The section says the expression court which passed a decree or words to that effect shall, in relation to the execution of decrees, unless there is anything repugnant in the subject or context, be deemed to include where the decree to be executed has been passed in the exercise of the appellate jurisdiction, the court of first instance. Suppose the decree to be executed is that of the appellate court. The court of first instance is the court which passed the decree for the purpose of execution. Where the court of first instance has ceased to exist or to have jurisdiction to execute it, the court which, if the suit wherein the decree was passed was instituted at the time of making the application for the execution of the decree, would have jurisdiction to try such suit. There is an explanation also to section 37. The decree of appellate court will be construed to be the decree passed by the court of first instance. 37, section 37, Ramankutti versus Avara, 1994, 1 KLT 453. 1994, 1 KLT 453. Then the next topic is next. Transfer of decree and powers of transferee court. Section 39. 39 deals with transfer of decree. Under what circumstances a decree can be transferred? The court which passed a decree may, on the application of the decree holder, send it for execution to another court of competent jurisdiction, added in 1976 amendment. If there are there are a few situations mentioned. If the person against whom the decree is passed actually and voluntarily resides or carries on business or personally works for gain within the local limits of the jurisdiction of such other court. So the person against whom the decree is ought to be executed is not available within the jurisdiction of the court which passed the decree, but available within the jurisdiction of some other court. If such person has no property within the local limits of the jurisdiction of, suppose a person does not have any property within the jurisdiction of the court which passed the decree, but has property within the jurisdiction of another court, a decree can be transferred for execution to that court. Then C, if the decree directs sale or delivery of immovable property situated outside the local limits of the jurisdiction of the court which passed it. Then, if the court which passed the decree considers for any other reason, which it shall record in writing, that the decree should be executed by such other court. Then subsection 2, the court which passed a decree may, of its own motion, send it for execution to any subordinate court of competent jurisdiction. Then subsection 3, for the purposes of this section, the court shall be deemed to be a court of competent jurisdiction if, what is the meaning of competent jurisdiction? That is what is explained in subsection 3. If at the time of making the application for the transfer of decree to it, such court would have jurisdiction to try the suit in which such decree was passed. So this is the meaning of court court of competent jurisdiction. Then subsection 4, it was introduced in 2002. I mean, with effect from 1/7/2002. Nothing in this section shall be deemed to authorize the court which passed a decree to execute such decree against any person or property outside the local limits of its jurisdiction. See, even prior to 2002, there were several decisions of the Supreme Court and the High Courts, which exactly dealt with the question now, with the situation now now mentioned in subsection 4. In fact, subsection 39(4) was added to subsection 4 was added to section 39 on the basis of the principles decided by the Supreme Court and various high courts. Now the position is very clear. There is a provision in the code itself. Amendments were considered in Salem Bar Association, case 1, 2003, 1 SCC 49. Then Mohit Bhargava versus Bharat Bhushan Bhargava and others. This also the importance of section of transfer of decree, the impact of section 39. These principles were considered in Mohit Bhargava versus Bharat Bhushan Bhargava and others. 2007, Volume 4 SCC 795. 2007, Volume 4 SCC 795. So section 39, the first part of section 939 says that on the application of the decree holder, the court which passed the decree can send the decree for execution to another court of competent jurisdiction. Subsection 2 says that the power of the court, subsection 2 deals with power of the court to suo motu send the decree for execution to any subordinate court of competent jurisdiction. So transfer of decree will be necessary if the person is not residing within the jurisdiction of the court which passed the decree, or the property, or if he does not have property and he is residing somewhere else within the jurisdiction of another court of competent jurisdiction, or if he has property. And apart from this situation, the court also can, by invoking 39(2), send a decree for execution to any subordinate court of competent jurisdiction. Then these provisions also has to be looked into along with section 39, Order 21 rules 5 to 8. Rule 5 deals with mode of transfer. 6, procedure where court decides that its own decree shall be executed by another court. Rule 7, court receiving copies of decrees, etc., to file the same without proof. Then execution of decree or order by court to which it is sent. It is not possible to discuss these provisions in detail because of paucity of time. So I have stated at the very beginning, I will be giving only an overview of the relevant provisions. Then not necessary. This slide is not necessary. Then section 42. 42 deals with powers of court in executing transfer decree. It has the court to which the decree is sent for execution has the same powers as that of the court which passed the decree. Then section 41 says result of execution proceedings to be certified. The court to which a decree is sent for execution shall certify. So when a decree is sent for execution to another court, the court will file it and wait for the execution petition to be filed there by the decree holder. then if the decree is executed, if the decree is satisfied, or if it is not satisfied for a period of 6 months, then the court to which it is sent will certify the result of the execution to the court from which it was sent for, or court which passed the decree. That is the better expression. Usually, when there is no EP, the decree will be the certificate will be sent to the court which passed the decree. EP execution petition not filed. So decree was not executed. Decree remained unexecuted for 6 months. So this had to be sent. Suppose there are several judgment debtors, more than one judgment debtor. One judgment debtor is residing outside the jurisdiction of the court. The decree creates a joint and several liability executable against all the judgment debtors. Simultaneous execution is permissible. It can be executed against one judgment debtor in one court. Then if judgment debtor is not available within the jurisdiction of some other competent court, then decree can be transferred to that court. The transferee court can execute the decree only against the judgment debtor against whom the decree was sent to it for execution. This was considered in Srikumaran Nair PN versus Dhanlakshmi Bank, 2008, 4 KHC 152. Then these are the provisions, Order 21, Rule 1 and 2. Payment under the decree. Once, if a decree is passed and the payment to be made under the decree is paid as provided and certified as provided and in Order 21, Rule 1 and 2, then there is no need for any execution. So question of execution arises only if the decree is not satisfied. So these provisions are also important, rules 1 and 2. Then sub rule 3 to rule 2 says that a payment or adjustment which has not been certified or recorded as aforesaid shall not be recognized by any court executing the decree. So these two provisions are very important. Rules 1 and 2 have a clear idea about these provisions also. A decree can be assigned just like a property. The transferee can execute the decree. The execution should be by the modes provided in the code. Section 51 says what are the modes of execution. The transferee has to obtain permission of the court which passed the decree. He cannot approach the transferee court directly. So these are a few tips on the limitation. For delivery of possession by court auction purchaser under Order 21, Rule 95, 1 year from the date of confirmation of sale. There was a controversy on this. Several decisions are there. Latest, the full bench of the Kerala High Court in Danish Varghese, 2021, Volume 1, KHC 1. It is worth to read that decision. All the principles are discussed. For enforcement of a decree granting mandatory injunction, 3 years. We have already discussed that, Article 135, 3 years from the date of decree or date fixed for performance. Then for execution of any decree other than maintenance decree, mandatory and perpetual, 12 years from the date of decree or order becoming enforceable. To record an adjustment of satisfaction of a decree under Order 21, Rule 2, 30 days. Article 125. For the payment of the amount due under the decree by installments, 30 days. To set aside sale in execution of decree, including EA by JD, Order 21, Rules 89, 90, 91, 60 days from the date of sale. Then to set aside sale in cases relating to debts due on mortgage deed any time before confirmation of sale as provided under Order 34, Rule 5. Then redelivery of possession under 2199, 30 days from the date of disposition under Article 128. Then removal of resistance or obstruction to delivery, 30 days from the date of resistance. For execution of decree granting perpetual injunction, no time limit is prescribed. Article 136, proviso to Article 136 of Limitation Act specifically says so. Time limit for detention of an accused arrested JD in court premises under custody of officer of court, not exceeding 15 days. The first proviso to Order 21, Rule 40. Then when sale takes place, when this is very important, when a property is sold in auction, property is sold in court for realization of money, and suppose if a person bids purchases the property, that person has to deposit 1/4 of the amount immediately. Immediately means immediately, and if that amount is not deposited, 1/4 is not deposited, the relevant provision says that the property shall be resold immediately. On payment of 1/4 of the amount, the court will the court says that the balance amount will have to be deposited within 15 days. This period is mandatory. This period cannot be extended by the court. If the balance amount is not deposited within the stipulated period, the sale will go. The property will have to be proclaimed and sold again. Of course, 1/4 of the amount, if the decree holder has obtained permission under Order 21, Rule 72 CPC for bid and set off, he need not pay 1/4 of the amount. Then 3/4 of the sale proceeds 15 days from the date of sale, that is Order 21, Rule 85. Time limit for payment of any bata in execution except sale warrant, 2 days. Then time for sale, in the case of immobile property, 15 days from the date on which the copy of proclamation is affixed on the court notice board. As far as mobile properties are concerned, it is 7 days. Usually, some judicial officers used to say that when a property is proclaimed for sale, and the sale is posted on a particular day, when the processes are returned, usually the practice followed by the process servers is that the notice will be affixed on the notice board of the court on last. So that 15 days will start from that day onwards. Suppose the notice of sale is affixed on the notice board of the court 2 days prior to the date fixed for sale. Then, and the sale is conducted, it will be a ground to set aside sale, because mandatory requirement is 15 days from the date on which the copy of proclamation is affixed on the court notice board. So judicial officers will have to ensure that these provisions are strictly followed. You have to issue instructions if this is not followed in letter and spirit. Then usually what happens is that there is delay in execution of the decree. Several factors contribute for delay in execution of the decree. So some certain provisions will have to be borne in mind. The period prescribed for filing of execution petition, and the fact that Section 5 Limitation Act is not applicable to execution proceedings. So if there is delay cannot be condoned. Then one will have to understand Order 21, Rule 22 also. So under certain circumstances, notice will have to be issued before the decree is executed. What are the circumstances under which notice should go before the process of execution is narrated in Order 21, Rule 22 CPC. Then certain other situations that will lead to delay in execution is death of the decree holder, death of judgment debtor pending EP. So whenever such things happen, it is necessary to for the parties concerned to take immediate steps. Then another event that results in delay in execution is stay of proceedings. Usually, when execution of the decree is stayed by the appellate court and the appeal is disposed of, the fact that the appeal is disposed of and the stay is vacated is not communicated or made available to the knowledge of the court executing the decree. If it is brought to the knowledge of the court executing the decree immediately, the court can proceed with the execution proceedings and see that the decree is executed. Then certain petitions will be filed under section 47, order 21 rule 58, 59, order 21 rule 97 to 100, order 21 rule 105, 106. Several petitions will be filed under these provisions. Claim petitions, when the property is about to be sold, third persons will come to the executing court with petitions under order 21 rule 58. Some persons will be claiming under the judgment debtor. There are provisions in order 21 rule 58 that enables the court to reject the claim petition at the threshold without conducting inquiry if the conditions are satisfied. Suppose a claim petition is filed and the court shall not proceed with sale of the property. Court cannot confirm the sale also if sale has already taken place till the claim petition is disposed of. Likewise, when a decree for possession is put in execution, there will be resistance, obstruction by third parties, obstruction by judgment debtors or persons claiming under them. Then it is easy to remove the obstruction. Suppose the obstruction is from a third party claiming title independent of the judgment debtor, the court is duty bound to conduct an inquiry, to issue notice to the obstructor, get him before the court, conduct an inquiry as to the right, title, interest of the person concerned. So it's a proceeding. It's a proceedings in the nature of an original proceedings, and any finding after an inquiry on the questions mentioned under Rule 101 is a decree and it's an appealable decree. Then Section 47 CPC deals with powers of the execution court. All questions between those persons mentioned under Section 47 relating to execution, discharge and satisfaction of the decree shall be decided by the court executing the decree and not by a separate suit. Then there will be delay in payment of BATA also, process steps. There will be delay in taking steps. So if these things can be taken care of, it is possible to get the decree executed as quickly as possible. So the lawyers, the judicial officers, everyone should consider execution of the decree as a serious matter. It should be given due weight, or it should be given top priority. Execution of the decree should be given top priority. A person will not be satisfied by getting a piece of paper, a decree, called decree. The fruits, he must be able to enjoy the fruits of the decree. Having conducted litigation for several years, he will be fed up with the system. He will be fed up with whatever happened. So it is the duty of all of us, the judicial officers, the lawyers, everyone to ensure that the decree is executed. Of course, there will be some delay in some cases, but intentional delay from the part of anyone, either decree holder or judgment debtor, cannot be entertained or cannot be tolerated. So this is as promised. I have promised Madhukumar to complete the general discussion within 1 hour. So I have kept my promise. If anything, if any discussion is required, we can. If